Volcán de Fuego, or as the stratovolcano is most commonly called, Fuego, resides in Guatemala, overlooking its former capital, Antigua, in Central America. It's in a region with many volcanoes, which is one of the reasons why it's so active, with 53 recorded explosions since 1581. Fuego is famous for being active but with no destruction most of the time, as smoke rising shows its activity, yet no eruptions occur. However, when it does erupt, it's explosive with viscous and pyroclastic lava flow, producing major ashfall and most often basaltic rocks. The last major eruption like this was in 1974, yet the last eruption was in 2002. An emergency plan for evacuating a volcanic region should include 1. Identifying the hazard zones, 2. Identifying a safe refuge zone, 3. Identifying an evacuation route, 4. Providing shelter in the refuge zone, 5. Medical services available for treating injured people, 6. Providing security in evacuated areas, 7. Having an alert system in order to inform people of impending danger. Guatemala is organized for evacuation. However, on September 13, 2012, when Mount Fuego erupted, some people refused to leave their home. The eruption caused the government to recommend the evacuation of at least 33,000 people. However, only 11,000 ended up evacuating. Head of Emergency Evacuation Sergio Cabanas said the evacuees were leaving from 17 villages around Volcán del Fuego, which is 6 miles southwest of the colonial city Antigua. Authorities said Antigua was currently not in danger, but they thought that the eruption would last for at least 12 more hours. The eruption was so bad it caused flights through that area to be canceled. Teresa Mariquin, who was the disaster coordinator for the Guatemalan Red Cross, said the organization set up 10 emergency shelters and was sending hygiene kits and water. Many people stayed with friends or relatives, where others had stayed in the 10 shelters, each able to house up to 200 people. Even though Guatemala does have an evacuation plan, they need to enforce evacuation of people.
Tourists will always remember their first view of the magnificent mountains of Colima. The fiery Mount Fuego attracts many people. It's probably because of its magic zone, where your car will go uphill without being turned on, or its exquisite overlooks where you can see forested valleys and gorgeous lakes. Besides its magic zone and overlooks, tourists go there because it's the most active volcano in Mexico, and unlike Hawaii, no lava flows block the highway. Volcán del Fuego also offers birdwatching, difficult yet superb hikes, and horseback riding in the valley, where you get to see different plantations and go volcano sightseeing. Additionally, tourists go there for Mount Fuego's camping, where they get to see the sunset and hopefully a few outbursts of fire from the volcano. Along with sightseeing Mount Fuego, tourists can go to a nearby dormant volcano called the Snow Volcano, where they get to stand on it. There's definitely many reasons why tourists would enjoy going to Volcán del Fuego.
Fuego has minerals in it that mix in with the soil when it erupts or rains down from landslides. This creates some of the best soil for agriculture in the world. Although some farmers' crops are destroyed in the process, that's just a short-term setback, and the fertile soil allows new things to grow. Fruits and vegetables such as corn, beans, rice, wheat, melon, mangoes, pineapples, broccoli, celery, sugarcane, coffee beans, and as well as various nuts and spices grow especially well in this area. The soil is also particularly rich in potassium, so bananas are a frequent fruit they grow too.
Many people throughout the world use myths and legends to describe how things came to be. There are several stories that people in Guatemala tell about Mount Fuego. The first story is about how 3,000 years ago, the god of fire that lived upon Nevada de Colima gave advice and souls to the inhabitants of Guatemala. However, his younger brother, who resided in Volcán de Colima, Mount Fuego, punished people who didn't please him by causing lava to flow. Some people of Guatemala think of Mount Fuego with fear because of the lava that it spurts out. The Land del Volcán, or the Legend of the Volcano, tells about how two religions, Catholicism and the Maya Quiche religion, struggle with each other. The legend began with 6 men, 3 from the water and 3 from the wind. The men from the water nourished themselves with stars, while the men from the wind walked through the forest like birdmen. Along with the 6 men, there were 2 gods, Caprican, who caused earthquakes, and Hurricane, who was the giant of the winds and the spirit of the sky. All of the animals fled from the forest because Caprican caused a tremor. One of the 6 men, Nido, whose name in Spanish means nest, was the only one of the 6 men that was still alive. He was ordered by a saint, White Lily, and a child to build a temple. Once the temple was built, the trees began to fill with nests. This legend also illustrates that destruction is always followed by rebirth. The last part of the story about how the trees began to fill with nests shows the process of renewal. This 16th century legend by Paige Cross explains how the two prominent volcanoes, Nevado de Colima and Volcán del Fuego, belong to two gods named Huihuiteotl and Mictlantecutli. There was once a bloodthirsty and savage young Aztec warrior who sent thousands of brave yet foolish men to Tlalocan, god of the afterlife. The few who dared battle the warrior died by his hands, which led others to believe that this warrior was Tlalocan's worldly equivalent. However, this warrior was not connected to the gods. He just killed to appease his bloodthirst. The god of the underworld, Mictlantecutli, hated the vast diversion of souls from his realm, so he planned to kill the young warrior during the next battle. Fortuitously, the warrior arrived early at the battlefield. As he stood alone, Mictlantecutli released all his fury and underworld vengeance from the sky, sending toward the warrior the deadly contents of the underworld. The contents were fed by the wrath of Huihuiteotl, the god who gives life, for he hated the warrior for extinguishing the flames he placed in the men that the bloodthirsty warrior slew. When the other warriors arrived at the site, they saw mountains, now covered in ash, telling a story of violence. The story told of the lives lost to this savage young warrior who died in a flash from the god's wrath. Mictlantecutli remains relatively silent in the volcano, known as Nevado de Colima, for having had his revenge. However, Huihuiteotl, who resides in Volcán de Fuego, still erupts frequently, reminding people that although he may give life, he can also take